Hey,
Hey, good morning. Well, it's still morning here. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm good. I'm trying something new. I've got it on my phone and my computer.
All right. Hey, it looks like you got some sun.
Yeah, it's pretty nice here. Try and get out for a big walk every day. That seems
Good for you.
the answer to everything.
It is. It really is. I find the magic happens at the 25-minute mark.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
I find whether after 20 minutes of meditation, but for walking, biking, getting out and not engaging in conversation when you're alone in nature, that's when that release happens and that feeling of peace. And as you recalibrate and settle and process your thoughts, that metric for me is have to hit 25 minutes. And I'm a fair weather person, but this winter I had my snow pants at the front door every day, would get out for a walk and made a point to just put in music or no music, and really it made a significant difference in in my day and my nervous system.
Huh. 25 minutes. I'll test that. I
Okay.
never thought about it.
Yeah, let
I
me
get
know.
it. Yeah, I get it. I
That's
like
great.
these. I like when these things, when you learn these new things.
I
Uh,
think my life's a constant science experiment.
what's that called? Biohacking. Are you a biohacker?
I am actually. I'm the amount of autoimmune disorders and things I've over.
Right, you have to be.
It's yeah, it's a constant experiment. So last thing is psoriasis, which I'm determined to figure out.
I sent you a link through WhatsApp. It's called non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, and I tried it yesterday, and I actually it was pretty cool. And I thought, oh, I should see what other people think of this. So I just sent you that.
I'm familiar with it. Yoga Nidra is one of
Oh, okay.
the.
Yeah, there you go. You already know. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'd like to actually try it when I'm under, deadline or some sort of,
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Is
dysregulation, right? It's like,
and
would it still work?
welcome to others. It's not just government strategy. We also talk about wellness because it's all the same. And I lost my train of thought based on what you just said, Peter. Because there's
I'll
something
shut up.
I wanted to share. What had you just mentioned?
Oh, just about anti-fragility and
Oh yeah,
tools that work under pressure.
I think a quote I heard once was it was a quote from a monk that said, "We normally meditate 1 hour a day, but when we're very busy or stressed, we meditate 2 hours a day."
It's funny, a lot of that stuff gets lost in translation in kind of the global north, like the other one was. There's something about healthcare in China where, the doctor treats people when they're healthy, not when they're sick or something, like yeah, yeah, there's definitely some stuff lost in translation for sure.
And speaking of healthcare, I think that's a good segue. Welcome, Isaac and Kathleen. How are you guys, and what brings you here today?
Always a good discussion, guys. Just listening in.
What got your attention or what resonated?
Well, I'm in the building industry, and no matter no matter what we're looking at, they're they need buildings and structures and power and everything. So I'm particularly interested in the healthcare industry, actually, as well, because generally um, things are changing so rapidly in healthcare.
Mhm.
And so we're looking at how to support that change in how we deal with buildings and ensuring that we can be a lot more agile in how we design and construct.
Okay. And is there a specific project you had in mind or initiative?
Uh, Not a specific project, but concepts that that we're socializing with different um, healthcare. Well, the whole healthcare arena is changing all the time as well. But yeah, we're just socializing some ideas with well, actually with facility managers that manage healthcare buildings. So,
Okay. And any for the facility managers, any specific challenges or anything that you could share to just give greater context?
oh well, certainly being able to accommodate change out of fairly significant equipment, diagnostic equipment, being able to do that in and maintain clean environments, and actually also have the required power and digitization connections and so on, easily relocatable and available. So it's just really ensuring that particularly interior building solutions are very flexible just to accommodate changing equipment and processes within healthcare environment.
I know the new Ottawa Civic Hospital campus is a state-of-the-art facility, and the definition process has been extensive. I'm sure there's some pretty interesting lessons learned or best practices coming out of there. But I think that's a big challenge where hospitals are one of the most complex pieces of infrastructure we have, and the requirements to channel optical cables, digital cables, explosive gases
Yeah.
is it's and the cost per square foot is astonishing compared to say residential construction. It's usually 6 to 10x the cost, and refitting them. I don't think much thought comes into play when it comes to refitting and keeping up to date with technologies to make sure that they're versatile enough to accommodate changes.
Mhm. Well, actually, the keeping up with technology is the challenge in any particular industry for sure, and it's really accelerating that and power requirements,
Mm,
ensuring that well, I mean, certainly looking at risk and resilience for power, but it's becoming ever more important as more and more power is required for all kinds of different things. So.
yeah, well, let's Isaac, was there anything that you wanted to, or I guess the better question is what brings you here? And
Yeah,
the idea was
sure.
Peter wanted to share things related to doing business with different levels of government in the space of medical services, supply, products. And if not, we can get into specifics of whatever you, Kathleen, or anyone else on this call have.
Yeah, so what brought my attention to it, I'm getting into, I'm working with the VR&E program for the Veterans Administration.
Okay.
So I'll be finishing my master's in business administration and innovation. And I'm looking at switching careers into something more of a project manager or program manager kind of position. So this kind of piqued my interest, just getting some information as I'm finishing school
Yeah.
to get to my head some ideas of some things I can do and making that transition. I've worked in travel since the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty sick of it.
Okay.
And AI is probably going to take me over anyway. So, so
I think my perspective
yeah.
is that there's going to be this beautiful symbiosis with AI, and
Yes, sir.
this life if it's done responsibly.
Yeah, right.
Where are you located? I'm guessing Kentucky.
No, I'm in Tennessee
Oh,
in the Memphis area. So yeah.
your
I
t-shirt
work
just
for,
led me.
actually, I don't work for a travel agency. I work directly for a corporation here in a large corporation here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Gotcha.
I'm one person. I have to manage travel for 120,000 employees. Have a nice day.
Well,
Okay.
I just got through with that. So I'm multitasking here. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess you'd have
I'm
to.
officially at lunch, but I'm kind of still multitasking.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us and
No
congratulations
problem.
on your new trajectory.
Thank you.
Any
What, sorry, yeah, Isaac, back up a little bit. You were saying something to do with what was your dissertation or your thesis?
No, I'm finishing my MBA at Regent University in business administration and innovation.
Sorry, I
Did
thought
you
you
hear
said
me?
something to do with, yeah, I thought you said something to do with the military.
No, it's with the VRE program, uh, Veterans
What's the,
Rehabilitation. Yeah, yeah.
okay,
So
that's,
the
so,
Veterans
so,
Administration is retraining me to do something else,
oh, okay,
basically.
they're the
Yeah,
ones that are doing it. So,
they're
and,
facilitating all that for me. Yes, sir.
okay, and you were in service at some point in your career.
Yes, I'm a veteran. Yes, sir. Me and my wife are both veterans.
Nice.
so thanks for
And,
your service, Isaac.
Thank
yeah.
you. Hmm.
And so what would your dream career be next?
I would like to see something within the medical field of wellness. And what y'all talked about, y'all kind of alluded to it. Ounce of prevention is more worth a pound of cure. So
Yeah.
more of a prevention way. And I've been working, so I've had to do that for myself for years. Long story short, I was in a head-on collision accident some years ago, and had to recover from that. And I really got into wellness for that and doing things more natural towards that. And I was blessed to actually go from being 100% disabled to being back in the workforce now for a couple few decades. So yeah.
Wow.
What sparked my interest, I've been working with a gentleman in the US, Andrew, and he's devised, um, I'm going to get it wrong, I'm paraphrasing, but it's really around um, physical training for uh, veterans, but very focused on kind of the post-traumatic stress side. And it's been really interesting. I mean, I knew nothing about this 6 months ago, and I think Anish has kind of seen some of the posts that I put up. Um, but it's using physical training to re um, yeah, I'm going to get this all wrong, realign the neuroplasticity. But I was also thinking about housing, as we were talking about physical buildings earlier. He's also been working on a concept around social housing projects that, without this um, kind of concept of healing, um, we're just repeating these cycles. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience for me
Hmm.
to learn more
Yeah,
about
I'd be
that
interested to
stuff.
connect it with him. That's kind of what I've
Yeah,
done. Yeah, physically.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. It's
yeah.
very in line with like you could do quite a gap analysis on your own experience and
Well, I'm the first person in my immediate family to live past 58 years old.
Wow.
wow.
Yeah,
I've heard that several times.
yeah.
Somebody else said that to me the other day, that the same kind of thing, that nobody in their families lived to the age they were at. Yeah, I can send you a bunch of his stuff. It's really interesting, actually. Like I said, because it's novel to me, and I like learning. So,
Yes,
um,
sir.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out I got to get the buzzword because, like I said, I'm bastardizing the whole thing when I talk about it. I don't have enough of the buzzwords. So, are you guys doing AI training or case studies in your program at school?
I start in the fall. I haven't started yet.
Oh, okay.
But we have been doing it at work. They have me actually, they decided to to add me into testing with work with Copilot
Huh.
Okay.
with Microsoft. So basically what I've done with that basically is mostly use it for like when we have meetings. I use it for helping keep up with notes and putting things like that. So it's been pretty good with that. So yeah. Um, but as far as I'm sure once I start, we'll we'll be diving into that, but Chat GPT and all those other things are going on. So yeah. And I've used Chat in preparation for things, but I'm aware of being careful with Chat GPT. I don't use it to get answers. I use it to enhance answers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a collaboration with the powerful technology.
Right.
It'll be interesting. So I taught at the business school, and one of the takeaways for me that's always stuck with me is how poorly academics transferred other people's original ideas in the business kind of setting. So the example I would give is something called business model canvas, which was originally created by a European, Osterwalder, and pretty much every business school in North America uses business model canvas now, as opposed to writing business plans, which kind of went out, with the dodo. And I've watched 100% of academics not deliver his teachings exactly. And I also thought that was interesting that there's a kind of an ego involved in education that, why wouldn't you just put up a video of, the original thought leader delivering his information, and then you curate the information as the academic with the students, in that regional geography. And so it'll be interesting how AI, I think it's going to evolve in the business schools faster than anywhere else. I mean, maybe in the humanities, but I think people are going to have to accept the collaboration between student and AI, or they're gonna implode. I mean, young
Yeah,
learners,
definitely. Yeah.
they
The
leverage,
old way of learning is gone. Yeah.
oh yeah, they leverage every tool. I mean, I learned more from the students than I was teaching, kind of thing, when it came to technology stacks. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
I always kind of snicker about that and think, oh, I wonder when that's going to really, really just have to be the accepted norm that learners can use AI as a collaborative tool. I mean, of course, you don't want it to say, please complete my MBA.
Exactly.
Submit. I'm sure
Yeah.
somebody will try. Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think my approach is more of a use it like an assistant,
yeah.
like a personal assistant, something like that. Yeah, something in that
That's
realm.
definitely the smart move. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the healthcare challenges you see in the U.S. from your own physical experiences?
I see a lot of people challenges with things like type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
Okay,
Um,
so like kind of environmental lifestyle diseases.
right, lifestyle things. So one of the things I did since my mother died at age 47 of a heart attack, and my father at age 54, and my older brother at age 58. So they all died of heart attacks. And I think a lot of them may have had diabetes or were undiagnosed. And at one time
Oh,
I was diagnosed with pre-diabetic myself,
yeah.
but I was able to overcome it. Or matter of fact, even recently I was able to get my blood sugar down to normal naturally. Blood pressure is I still have to take something for blood pressure. But last time I went to the doctor, I had to get treated recently for prostate cancer. But I was able, my number, the doctor said my numbers are perfect. So yeah, and my PSA numbers are down. And even me and my wife together have gone to a different lifestyle eating, dietary and those type of things. So we're just trying, and of course, continuing on with the exercise and, learning, you know, different things, make sure we stay good and hydrated. Just simple things, everything, things that you can do to
Yeah,
keep
we're
yourself healthy.
being in Canada. It's interesting, like that. those food environmental issues have shown up here, in the last, I don't know, I'll say only a decade, but I think they've been in the U.S. probably, for a couple decades. And of
Yeah.
course, different ethnic groups can't metabolize sugar, so that
Yes.
that's another one that it probably takes 10 generations to change. I know the indigenous population in Canada, there's a huge, like pretty sure it's across the country, issue with diabetes, sugar, um, and of course it's social economic, right? It's inexpensive to drink soda pop, but yeah, there's a it's epidemic. Yeah, interesting that cost of food, I think, is a big issue too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You can go to Costco every day and have a hot dog for $1.50 and call yourself, fed.
Yeah.
We know where that goes.
Oh
We know
yeah.
where that leads.
Ain't gonna be a good result. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Socrates said, "Let medicine be thy food, and thy food thy medicine," or something to that effect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I wonder how that got corrupted. That would actually be a bit of an interesting. There's a chat GBT question.
There you go.
But yeah, that would actually be a bit of an interesting to understand that, because you're right. And I know here I would say it's the cost of food is the challenge, to feed a family. Like I think about my brother has 4 kids, and they drink a lot of milk and eat a lot of pasta, and they don't have 2 taste buds between the 6 of them. But
Yeah.
I'm sure when you actually think about why they eat peanut butter, spaghetti and milk, it's economic more than anything, right? Like, I mean, they're intelligent, educated people, but I'm sure to eat it really healthy would be food. I actually don't know the difference, the delta between U.S. and Canadian food costs, but food is very expensive in Canada since COVID. Like, I think somebody told me it went up 28%.
What I've seen in my travels to the US is that the cost, looking at produce, is the same dollar to dollar in terms of numbers. So I think it's equivalent based on income levels in the US and their, I guess, GDP per capita values, but it's pricey to eat high quality proteins with quality produce, which is the ticket to good health. It's expensive, and then it takes more time for the prep and all that as well. So it's easier, cheaper to eat poorly.
And more accessible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting into economics now,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing, but a great deal of, and I actually follow about 5 economists because it weaves through everything that we do, but there are just a few monopolies, certainly in Canada, that are really behind the cost of food. So it's interesting over the last couple of years, I'd say, um, there are getting to be, because the cost of food and it's supported, there are getting to be more smaller providers of food. But, I live in BC. It's the food province. Well,
The
so's
bread basket. Yeah.
yeah, so's Ontario. Well, the prairies, there's grain and bread coming from there. But certainly, we've been searching out different providers of all kinds of food. And right now it's summer, so the number of markets and market gardens are extensive. So that's really one of the key issues that I'm seeing is monopolies in grocery stores.
Mhm.
And the fewer
So are
monopolies.
they are they monopolies in manufacturing or produce or growing, or is it all just in the grocery?
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
think simply too few competitors, period, throughout the whole industry. But certainly, where consumers meet food is usually in grocery stores, and there are just too few competitors, quite frankly. I think, just recently with focus on um, trade within Canada, I think we can ultimately see a lot more barriers coming down and a lot more trading across Canada because there's really a lot of things that get produced in Canada.
Mhm.
So that is that's a good thing.
And what I've seen are the more wholesome companies that are coming up that are were the ma and pa companies that sold quality food, or whether it's organic or not, but have gone snatched up by the bigger players like the Nestle's and the P&Gs. It's inevitable. They're just too big. They take out the competition, and
Yep.
the more we can increase trade between our provinces, the better off we'll be for the quality of the nutrition too, with less travel time compared to say Ontario strawberries. A pound of them will be about $5, but $3 for California once that whether they come by plane, train, or automobile, but have less nutritional value.
No, we really do need to open the market to more competition, and that's a policy decision and maybe a couple of policy decisions, but I think we need to encourage that those decisions be made.
Yeah, and I actually have a client that has he's the CEO of an agronomy company, and what they've done is they, without the support of the federal or provincial government, have created trade agreements with other countries and bringing in more phosphates, fertilizers, different products, and are moving products out of the country without any government involvement.
That's
Uh,
okay.
which is great. And it's taken a lot of work on their behalf to make this happen, a lot of risk taking and leverage, but they're doing it where they lack that support. And it's hard because in a call actually I had this morning with them was understanding the agriculture industry trade association or fertilizer trade association and just the lobbying power they have.
Yeah,
It's protecting their financial interests and not actually the interests of Canadians or citizens or Americans. It's all corporate benefit.
yes, indeed.
And this is the idea. What Peter and I want to do is support these leaders to be able to support them to get the results that benefit us as opposed to the powers that be, and not government powers, but industry powers. And so, Kathleen, you've got the mic. Let's
I was actually just curious. I'm going to ask you folks because it does apply to all kinds of different types of industries and buildings, but in a few weeks we're going to be doing a kind of an online session about P3 projects.
hmm,
And in my experience, I've worked on P3 Hospital, actually the Royal Ottawa Hospital, way
okay.
back. Not for the entire duration of the project, but for some of it. And I also was behind organizing a P3 for the Iqaluit Airport project, which was a few years later. So most of these project arrangements are for larger, usually larger public projects and usually more complex ones for sure. So at any rate, as I'm sort of hosting this, but as guests, we've got four P3 experts in just delivering P3s right across North America, actually.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I think I'm looking forward to it because there's questions I need to ask as well.
And I've worked on my fair share of P3s, whether it was our communication security establishment, which was the first federal P3, where
Right?
at the time BC had the record for the most P3s in Canada. And I think there's a large amount of expertise there. But so I've worked on complex vertical construction, highways, bridges, and other P3s. And really, there is no single formula. It's ultimately the government wants to shift risk to the private sector and create long-term value, predictable value, so that they've got even burn rates for outsourced operations and maintenance, spread out that capital cost, and then define how to transfer that risk. And I also think that they haven't been, there's always a rush, right? We're going to have it done by this time, and that front end definition period schedule slips, and then there's a crunch to get things done. Hurried industry consultations. Industry always wins, but I still think there's value in a significant value in P3s because there's a lack of funding and public offers, so you can spread that out.
Yeah, no, they're not the one size fits all for
No,
sure.
there's
Just like any project. Uh, the success that I've seen anyway is highly dependent on the players themselves. And yes, you're right. BC has some really good brain strength in P3s. In fact, I was organizing the airport project in Iqaluit, but I reached out to BC and pulled in one of their project managers to run the whole thing, and it was excellent. And of course, we held out our hand for some federal funding, which was helpful too. But anyway,
I think that the three biggest oversights for P3s is defining positive and negative consequences for the proponent that's operating it, and where there's no incentives to create efficiencies, and there's no consequences for them in the procurement or designing the contract if they do not meet the requirements or the service standards. Service standards was the other piece. Another part of it is what happens after that 30, 40-year contract. There's not a lot thought given to the value of the asset at that point and how that's continued or what happens. It's just, oh, this is a 40-year contract, but no one's going to be in office or worrying about that. It's not their problem. So
well,
that's a piece.
you're so right. And that's actually why we're having this conversation in the context of facility management, because we need to be long-term thinkers. And yes, the players change all the time. It doesn't matter whether it's public or private. So you need to take that into account. So that's part of the whole risk resilience in looking at any project, quite frankly. But
What I would look at, say, if it was a 40-year contract, look at the 20-year mark to say, okay, well, we're going to find a new proponent. And there's an off ramp for the current operator, and you didn't meet these requirements, you're going to lose the contract and then bring in someone new because the BGIS or the SNCs of the world really know how to influence to make it beneficial for them, and taxpayers get screwed while they do minimum requirements and their service standards. They don't meet the service standards, or the service standards aren't stringent enough. So I think there should be a tiered incentivization to the market to be able to provide these standards. And really, after the 40 years, to have the asset to continue the capital improvements over that cycle instead of just letting it deteriorate
oh
until
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, there also needs to be some informed folks on the government's team.
yes.
Right, because you and people change all the time. So that's one of the threads we've already talked about is that how do you maintain this internal knowledge
Mhm.
and you actually continue to spread it?
That's it, because at the end of the day, no one knows the asset because they're all gone and only the operator does. And then there's this massive risk of, oh, we don't have the people, we don't have the knowledge, we don't know the asset, we don't know where it stands, all of that. Yeah.
So come on down, AI.
There's an application for that. And I think there's a use for AI and everything and
Yes.
doing it so it supplements or complements the humans.
Well, certainly in this business, in the building business, it provides, I think, accessible data as long as the power is on, and you're not apt to lose hard copy documents somewhere in the basement, boiler room, or something, that you actually have an opportunity to have real-time, accurate data based on input right through design and construction, and then as things are updated and changed. So,
This is one of my favorite topics, Kathleen, because you just
okay.
um I'm lit up on the inside because I've got a mental blueprint for what this could look like. And it's creating let's use a hospital as an example, is having a digital twin of the
Yeah.
entire asset and having all the components, like traffic light, red, yellow, green, for the deterioration of the different components as they age out. So you have a visual, you can show CEOs, the board, this is the status, this is what it's going to cost. That's a life cycle labeled components in that digital twin. And with that, where the operator has to maintain that data, where there's a dashboard that shows that health and the associated costs for the components for the O&M and capital
Yeah.
requirement. So it's and then having to maintain a certain threshold or level of investment and have that visual representation. So I don't think it's hard at all and leveraging AI to do that with that digital twin.
Well, I think that's probably the answer because it's been really difficult to date to, I mean, certainly the building industry has been really slow to digitize for sure, and which is
Yes.
weird because with A&E, architectures and engineering, I mean, CAD has been around for a really long time, Revit and so on. And then, contractors have slowly kind of digitized some stuff. And then, but it ends, poof, right at the end of the project. And that's so just so like I don't understand that. So that's what we're really advocating for, this continuation of providing information digitally. Digital twins makes perfect sense.
Yeah, this is what I try to implement in with the feds for facilities and for infrastructure. So short explanation on the infrastructure side is have that digital twin and grown-ups like pictures. So having that visual representation showing the deterioration of a bridge, the deck, the superstructure, the bearings, and the cost of inspections to crawl under are costly, but they're solutions. They're GIS sensors and solutions you can put under the bridge. It gets jammed up. It's not moving that fraction of the amount. Real-time warnings to go clean it out expands the life expectancy of that infrastructure asset by at least 20%, 20%. And then
Oh,
on the facility side, I had a model where using always integrated project delivery with building information modeling. You get that scan. You have to the quarter inch or millimeter the scan of the building. So not only do you have the data to create that digital twin, but now you've got precise information for materials to plan out any projects. And then with that color coding system, there just is no excuse. You have everything from the get-go, and as the projects are run, the data is updated, and it's not hard. It is not complicated at all with, especially now with off-the-shelf digital solutions or even AI.
yeah. Well, there's actually, I was talking to these folks. There's a company that I forget the name. I've got it written down somewhere. Anyway, they can document existing buildings and create digital representation and measure accurately to ensure that it's not just a visual representation, it's actually
Yes.
it's real. And so my question to them was, yes, but can you see behind the wall, sort of thing. So they have different solutions for that. And I should probably get them on a conversation as well, because there are solutions
There
and
are.
they continue to get better and better, which is, I think, important because, I mean, it's like anything else. You don't want a couple of dozen different varieties on your shelf because they really do need to integrate in a building environment, including sensors for sure, right? And backups to allow sensors to be active when and if the power goes off, and it will, right? So,
And that was it. The business continuity planning that I'd put in with you've got those scans, whether it's LiDAR for the BIM, you've
Mhm.
got heat and penetrating radar to understand what's behind the wall to get as much information as possible as you plan the projects, and later on, it's again lost my train of thought. Um, Go back to redesign. Sorry, what was the last sentence? This is ADHD for you. Lots of things happening at the same time in the brain.
It's
Sorry,
just
Kathleen, tell me again.
systems thinking. There's lots going on and it needs to all connect. And so
Right.
once something sparks, it goes on somewhere else. That's a good thing.
Got it. Yeah,
But
here's for business continuity. BCP piece and the IoT piece was a challenge because it was ensuring the security was there for, say, top secret labs,
yeah,
the federal government. How do you protect that? Where it's automated, you have those efficiencies, you have the readings, understand the energy usage for the sustainable development strategy that the feds have. But how do you ensure that doesn't get hacked?
yeah,
Which
yes.
which is there's a lot of vulnerability there. So because there's too many systems, a lot of it is Wi-Fi enabled, and so how can you do that? But this was early 2000s. The Communication Security Establishment was the first facility, I think, in North America that had top secret Wi-Fi, and it's a large glass windowed building. They figured that out in an early amount of time, but the same solutions and technology wasn't implemented or was too expensive in secure labs for the federal government. But it all exists. It's just thinking it through and making sure it's defined well. And this is the other things that we aim when we put out RFPs, it's too prescriptive as opposed to saying we need systems that achieve this capability and have this level of security under matching these certifications, which is what it should be, instead of saying we need four walls, a roof, a Wi-Fi system, and so forth.
You just nailed that. That is so true. Actually, I talk a fair bit with a procurement lawyer who's brilliant, who's written a book. And it's just she deals mostly with the public sector. But you're right. We're not we should not be prescriptive. We should really speak to
The
performance output.
capability and exactly, and how do we measure success?
Yes, exactly. Otherwise, we don't get innovation. And we then have clashes because you can't expect someone writing an RFP to understand design, to understand engineering, to understand all of these different things, nor do you want that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And procurement's usually after procurement should be brought to the table at the very beginning.
yes, so
Uh,
should the building operators.
yeah, yes, absolutely. Which is why IPD is the only way to go.
I'm a huge proponent of IPD. Did we talk about that last
I
time?
think we've touched on it, but anytime you want to talk more about any of these topics, as you can tell, I'm highly passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. Actually, just thinking again on P3s, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but because it's a good model and it's appropriate for so many different projects. But what happened, this was probably 2005, 6, in around there that the Royal Ottawa was underway. It was a P3, and I was working for Carillion Canada. And Carillion is actually, it was a UK company. And I didn't stay for the whole project. I got pulled away on other things, but Carillion was involved in probably about 10 different hospital projects, P3s across Canada, and they tanked. They went under. I don't know when, but it was certainly not at the end of the contract.
Oh, that's really interesting to understand how that even happened.
Yes, exactly. So I should probably touch base with one of my staff from Royal Ottawa at the time because they probably have a better idea of when it happened and so on. I can't really find any information online. Maybe I'll have to dig a little deeper, but that is a risk. And how to actually contain that risk. And I think part of the containment is don't let one or two companies manage, it's monopolies again, right? See the interconnections here between economics and business and everything else, right?
Yeah. I think the way to mitigate that is it doesn't just happen overnight, is to both sides need to audit, have the right in that contract to audit the other party's financials. And
Sure.
annually, there has to be a transparency act to be able to go through it and what happens. And that's the other piece is, sure, you want the contract and for the lessons learned to be able to have that transparency on an ongoing basis to see where resources are being applied on the proponent side or the contractor side, because that's just to be able to run a procurement process multiple times is exceptionally costly. It's
Yeah.
so mitigate it by just opening the kimono and being able to look into each other's books to show, wait a minute, and build that into the contract. This is turning out to be more costly on the government side, or this is being more costly on the proponent side, and how do we adjust that to make sure that we're just continuing with a win-win. I'm shocked they failed because of how lucrative these contracts are and how many corners get cut on the proponent side, and they manipulate those. I've seen it when I ran one of the rounds of the infrastructure stimulus ran. I would not allow any of the projects I was overseeing for 17 departments to have those projects run by BGIS, because
Okay.
a recarpeting project turned into a 12-week project that could have been done in 3 weeks.
So you were around doing during that time, eh?
I
Wow.
yeah, I've seen. I don't know if there's anything I haven't seen. I've run expropriations. I've run brownfield, greenfield, recapitalization, bridges, water infrastructure, military infrastructure. Really, you name it. I don't think there's any type of project I haven't seen or run.
Oh, that's cool. That's a wealth of knowledge. That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah, I feel I'm
Did you
pretty.
guys did you guys ever get into the prompt payment space?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
You were mentioning the red, yellow, green light. That seems to be a real laggard issue in BC. Like the Construction Association and others are lobbying for it, but nobody seems to want to move it forward. And I've always kind of wondered why, because it seems so obvious.
You know what? That's such a good question, and it's actually not just BC. It's across Canada, and the Canadian Construction Association continues to advocate with government to put, some policy in place to fix that. But I think the problem is it's endemic. So I mean, as much as the agency that's hiring to run a project, the financial people need to be involved. Like I've had some experience in that where it was just like crazy. Come on, people. So yes, the people running the project or owning the project are not prompt with payment. Like it's just crazy. But then too, GCs are not prompt
That's
with payment
so the
to
prompt
their.
legislation that came into play about 14, 13 years ago solved that, where the prime contractor got paid on time, but then the GCs or the primes weren't paying the subs on time.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's no hook in the agreements to force them to do that. And then the layered challenge on it, and this is what people don't understand, is okay, um, you've got a common services organization that's got the authority to do work for larger value projects, which is Public Works or Public Services Procurement Canada. For the line departments, the Health Canada's, the Fisheries and Oceans, certain departments like National Defense have higher authorities, can do it all on their own, and they've got their own procurement arm in Defense Construction Canada. So they are faster to pay because there's no middleman. For
Right.
smaller projects, line departments contract directly with the contractors, but if it's over a certain value, the project goes to Public Works. So what happens is Public Works delivers the work, bills the line department then pays Public Works, and then Public Works pays the contractor. So it's just there's middlemen, but ultimately the largest amount of delayed payments is coming from the GCs
Yeah.
at the federal level. I think at the provincial level too, but the CCA is they know that. They're just a squeaky wheel.
Yeah, I think they do know that. And it's I think it's just another strategy to squeeze more out of the value of a dollar. So they have, I don't know, a couple of weeks or months interest,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yep.
And yes, it's crooked. It's very crooked.
And while there's the contract incentives at a certain amount has to go to Indigenous companies or uh,
Yes.
areas, certain amount to small businesses, uh, the GCs just aren't, the contracts aren't shaped and they're not penalized or incentivized to pay them on time. And by the time it gets raised up the chain, it doesn't take long for the GC to say, okay, no worries, I'll just pay that. Yeah, sorry, that was an oversight. So it's got to, the hammer's got to be sharper or stronger. There can't be that period of follow up. It's you didn't do it, then this is the consequence.
Yeah, no, it's a large industry, right? It's complex. It's getting more and more complex and you have to have all the players at the table. Which, if you don't mind, I have a question and it has to do with Build Canada Build.
Sure. And actually, can we just pause for a second? Because I realize that we've got someone else on that hasn't had the chance to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a feeling I'll probably go on this, Kathleen. Good afternoon, Shan. Wanted to see if you had any questions or anything you wanted to ask.
Hi everyone. No, I've been listening. Maybe I joined 20 minutes ago. So
Welcome.
yeah, yeah, wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Okay, well then, if you want to ask anything, just throw up your hand. Otherwise, we'll continue with Kathleen. So please, Kathleen,
Sure. Thank you.
carry on.
Well, and so I'm a proponent of IPD, of course, huge proponent. And what I think is kind of interesting is, and certainly our experience in federal government, I think there's a desire, or maybe it's just my desire, be their desire, to to have a circular table consultation instead of a linear consultation. And because I don't think that there's any desire to dismiss or override various input that needs to happen. But I don't know that our people are accustomed to, well, they're not accustomed to, but whether they can get their head around a circular discussion as opposed to linear. Like sit around a circular table all at the same time, share questions, answers, ideas, all of that across the table with each other
Mhm.
because it's complex out there. You can't push this button and not expect 10 things to pop there. And if you try to deal with that in a linear fashion, as has happened, that's our history. I really think it's a convenient excuse for never getting anything done.
Yes, I agree. And where it should happen, just taking IPD theories at the beginning to constantly be getting that feedback. And an example, so I'll share what I see where the problem is and what I had done to create the circular um, activity to improve innovation because we don't know what we don't know. So the thinking is we know what we're doing, everything's good. This is the plan. We're going to go out and do this. Present it up. It gets blessed by the deputy and the minister, and off you go. And everyone's working to create it. And it's like, okay, time to bring in procurement. Go to procurement, and then a few weeks later, the RFP hits the street. But we're just repeating the same mistakes, and no one's taking into account past audits and evaluation. And so, an example I did overseeing projects for Parks Canada. So they had hundreds of millions of dollars going out the door, and it was renovating the parks, 4 series highways, bridges, canals, dams, and brought in industry and had a conversation instead of just going, this is what we're doing. It's a big question I put to industry on industry consultations was, what do you suggest we do? Should we package the work by what size would be best so that we can include more companies and get the work done faster? So that was one piece. Another piece is, should we do it by asset type or by geography? Because I was thinking, hey, if we've got 21 bridges to recapitalize, why don't we just have a bridge rental program? And the feedback I got was no, it should be done geographically. So that feedback made a world of difference, because then you were able to have that one belly button to push for geography, and it was consistent for what was happening, and all the benefits that were shared. But that's because of that, we're able to shape the procurement process to be faster, more effective, set in the right conditions to get that feedback, because I started it from the beginning. And then let's have recurring sessions to be able to provide what's going well, what's not working well. Do you have supplier problems, instead of at the 11th hour wondering why we're 6 to 12 months behind schedule just to learn, oh, there's a labor issue? Or so it just enabled for real-time risk management and reshuffling resources to accelerate work in other regions where it's going well, to maintain that flow of money, and then update the grown-ups in cabinet as necessary, so everybody's happy. And where there were unknowns as well, where industry couldn't give us answers, was okay, let's park this, that's an unknown. Let's cabinet ministers, cabinet committees want certainty and to know that public money is spent responsibly. And they'll say no if all the questions can't be answered. So then the other piece to that was saying, we know 80%, we're trying to figure out this 20%. Please give us the approval and the authority to spend now. I will come back quarterly and update you as we figure this out with different stakeholders. And so you get those conditional, faster approvals and just get money out the door, and the work gets done better, faster. And it's a win-win-win, because you've brought the community forward, brought the different stakeholders for delivery, brought industry, brought representation for the subs, because they need a say too, as opposed to it to the GCs to throw to. So bring everyone forward and say, this is what we're trying to do. What do you guys say? And it's really that simple. It's like going out to a restaurant with your kids and you end up at a place, they're like, oh, we don't want this. Ask them what they want. It's not hard.
So true. Such good analogy. Actually, when we were doing IPD project delivery, we did exactly that. Literally, we took the players to a restaurant
Okay.
for food, and we had a little gaming going on during the meal as well. And it was just really to allow everyone to get to know each other and feel
Yes.
comfortable, and then work better together. So
And
cool.
it's about relationships. And Peter and I's strategy in helping companies is understand who is going to advocate for you, who's going to get in front of the camera on your behalf to announce this regional benefit, and putting it on the silver platter for politicians, and
Yeah.
get to know them. And because that's what's required. All relationships are built on trust and respect, and you can't get to know someone unless you do that. And so just answering or responding to an RFP is, be proactive, get to know them, share what you're trying to do and how it benefits them.
So do you know your local MP?
No, because I don't. This is my clients at P's. Yes, I do. Actually, I do know my local MP, and the last election, as she's door knocking, I actually followed her around, just grilling her with questions, and her handler basically came and told me to F off, because I was just like, what do you guys do about this? What about this? So, do I know her? Yes.
Everything you're saying is dead on. It's really interesting. I worked for Parks Canada for 10 years actually.
Okay.
But that was early in my career, early. So
All right. Yeah.
common stories.
Who did I spent a lot of time with Calvin Mercer, and oh, who's the other? Another great public servant. So much respect for the leaders at Parks Canada. So George Green, I don't know if any of these names ring a bell. DG ADMs that were, I think, very good leaders that took an organization that got a lot in a short amount of time and made things happen.
No, that was after my time,
Okay.
actually. Uh,
You
yeah,
think of the great A&E teams, the project delivery team, so they went from a have-not to have province and increased their internal capacity with quality players in a short amount of time. So I really think that they're a good model to look at for how do you get things done when things need to get done.
yeah, that's good.
So we're coming up to time.
Oops.
I like how these conversations go. You know, we have an intent to talk about medical procurement and getting in, and different people come. And thank you, Kathleen, for bringing up some points that lead to really fun conversations. And it sounds like you've got your hands full. So
Well, I think it's all connected. I really do. And I think that so much of this conversation is still very applicable to the healthcare arena.
absolutely
And the more we can integrate learned experience with new challenges, I think the better we will be at solving things and not taking decades to do it.
agreed. I think Peter's probably got some.
Yeah, what comes to mind right away for me is the motivation, like really understanding, the political will for a lot of those infrastructure projects, especially hospitals, like I know where I am right now, there was a real battle between two communities to host a new hospital. So, the government built two hospitals to solve the problem, like which is really, that's pretty interesting to think that, they'll go into that kind of debt from,
Yeah.
from a
Okay.
political point of view. So it's interesting that, when you're dealing with public procurement, there's there's a lot of layers, and you're right, you need all those kind of lived experiences historically to come together to say, well, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, and and then of course the grift, why aren't they doing things this way? So it's extremely complex, but it's also that complexity seems to be quite clandestine, which is probably what needs to be uncovered, isn't it?
Well, that's such a good point, Peter. And I think that there's, in shedding the light on this, I think that sharing experiences from one seeming industry to another will really illuminate possibilities and, you know, look to solve things in different ways that we're not necessarily, how we've always done things. Because guess what? It's the 21st century. Let's
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
change it
yeah.
up. So I want to throw out an idea for you guys just to maybe percolate for a bit. So in the realm of housing, but it's not just housing, um, there's a really active community. It's global, which is really good, and it's looking to improve methods of construction, which is excellent. And our current government is also very interested in that, which is really good. So one of the folks is, I think, a former CMHC person, scientist, who's really actively involved. But so, and that's great because he's put together a software system to capture and categorize risk so that nothing gets ignored and like through the entire cycle process, not just this interest or that interest.
Hmm.
But one of the things I was thinking about is it's certainly a large part of our housing challenge, and it is international, so it's not just Canadian, is how we have done urban planning. And but then at the other side of this, I was thinking that the change in immigration numbers is really having an effect in so many different areas, including construction. But it also is having a huge impact on post-secondary education because they relied on foreign students for a good deal of their funding. So, over time, provinces stopped putting money into education and that it's just, I mean, it's a long process, but here we are. So my concerns are that I think we need to, as a country, I think we need to be investing in education of all kinds. I think that housing is a multi-generational challenge, not just, the how did he put it? Women whose clocks are ticking or something like that. It's not just about younger generations, it's multi-generational. And so I'm just trying to socialize this idea, and it's not new. I think it might actually be happening in Sweden and countries like that. But how I'm thinking that we should probably look to post-secondary institutions, campuses, to actually provide housing for older generations so that they can integrate with younger generations so that they can actually be part of the class learning and that becomes a revenue stream for post-secondary. So just throwing that out there, I have no ideas of what it would actually look like. But at the same time, connecting the dots here, universities and colleges are places where innovation should happen. So if there was an opportunity to actually encourage a post-secondary institution to do considerable research and dive into different construction methodologies because that also needs to change. So we can start connecting the dots here and solving a number of problems just by coming together.
I 3 years ago, I spent a considerable amount of time looking into exactly what you just said, Kathleen, and what the lowest hanging fruit was to improve outcomes for people. So, from wellness, what decreases suicide, chronic disease, and a connection. And I looked at all housing models around the world where they had similar climates, and Vienna, certain Nordic or the Nordic countries had the best in terms of how they create that community and weave in elders where they're not discarded and lose purpose. They're not going to retirement residences, and how to build communities around different segments of the population so everyone's integrated and you get that you don't lose value. People stay connected, and so connection was the number one factor. Increased connection, decreased mental health challenges.
Mhm.
And then the construction methodology. So I had a big whatever can't think of a more appropriate word for autoclaved aerated concrete, and I spent 6 months trying to find a supplier in Canada or then northern United States that would provide it. So this is where this is where I have a disdain for the CCA and current construction methodology. So I spoke with National Research Council. I went very deep into this. So I created a model called Community 2.0 that looks at single parents, elders, different segments, different wealth segments of the population and how to build communities. And then taking at the time, this I may have started this earlier, it wasn't just looking at 50-minute cities, but what makes that accessible? So you've got um, certain necessities within a certain reach of the population. What do they use most? Doctors, certain specialists, pharmacies, physiotherapists. So
Yeah.
everyone has access to these common ones because the model 50-minute cities is assuming that you can get a job in your field within 50 minutes, but that shouldn't be the case. It should be these amenities, what you use within a 3 to 6 month cycle, and the public transportation around that, and the density, the how to create what that. I looked at it at a 10,000 person, 20 and 100 person, 100,000 person scale, where you could replicate this in an urban setting where you get all these things coming together. And then the construction methodology, because the timber frame rots, it's not climate resilient. And it's funny, everyone I spoke to, I was sharing my model with this, saying, I want to find this autoclaved aerated concrete. And here's why: the longevity, the insulative properties, it's resilient to pests, mildew. If done in a certain way, if it's reinforced, it's seismic resilient, it's tornado. And what happened? I found that proponent who is now
Oh,
a client. So I am going to put them in the chat, and I am actively working. So what they've done is, like us, have the same, because values is very important, and who I'll promote or work with is this just for money, or are you trying to create good? Because this is what we need. Where insurance companies are bowing out in certain parts of North America because of the climate risk. So this can solve that, and we can repopulate, say, certain areas of Florida or California. They have some solutions. They don't have everything on that website, but what they've done, they take waste from the landfill to create this type of autoclaved aerated concrete that's got a formula similar to what the Romans used. So
okay.
the formula, which is no secret, it's additional lime. That's the secret in the cement. Allows concrete to withstand salt and the spalling and marine applications and all these wonderful things that we don't do because the CCA likes engineered obsolescence. But the configuration of homes was the other thing I looked at based on property values, the multi-generational aspect, what's wrong with society, our lack of participation in our community and houses of worship, where we don't have those elders and the value transfer. We don't have multi-generational homes where grandparents are helping raise our kids and keeping an eye and supporting parents. But I don't want my parents or my grandparents in my face every day. So how can you simplify that? So what if we had homes and homes are configured like a triplex, where you've got two sections of the home that are smaller units, but there's a larger kitchen common space in the main home where the grandparents can come in and then retire to their own place, have their own privacy, and you've got that common space. And where all the mechanical systems are built centrally in the building to also decrease costs.
Mm.
And later, as the grandparents move on to their next life, um, it's modular in the format that those sub houses or units can get closed off and become rental elements to the property. So you're increasing densification. You're able to have the increased affordability, all this wellness that benefits it. But where's the money?
Would there be issues with bylaws like building code with something like that?
All the municipalities with our housing crisis in Canada, or all major urban municipalities, have changed zoning to promote uh, SDUs or increase densification. So smaller communities, yes; larger ones, not. So there's a lot of support for that.
So
That's a work.
Kathleen, I just want to plant the seed for you. I came across this. I put it in the comments. It's called the Advanced Leadership Initiative, and a friend of mine from Toronto went to do this and wrote a journal. So I got to, follow his journey. And ever since learning about this, 10 years ago, I've always thought, why is there not a university in Canada that isn't duplicating this program? And the idea is it's for people that are at the end of their professional career to go and hang out at university and rethink how they're going to add value to society in their in their retirement. And he said it was just by far the best experience of his entire life. And so they got to audit any course at the university, and then they had these curated sessions and dinners. And I think Canada, we do it a little differently. We probably present problems to work on as cohorts, but the for them it was really kind of following your own philanthropic bliss, and then having it facilitated. And one of the ones that I'm familiar with is Gratitude Railway, which is now very successful. He came out of this leadership initiative. So yeah, I always thought, man, what a missed opportunity for a Canadian university to engage that kind of co-thinking and
Mhm.
co-learning. And I agree that UBC would make an excellent case study of what a failed land trust development looks like, because they basically just saw it as a revenue generator, to build high-end condos on endowment lands as opposed to actually an integrated community. And I'm sure anybody that's bought one of those condos is regretting it, because not only are they geographically isolated, there's no transit out there. It's a bit of a linear community. So yeah, it's I agree. There's lots of opportunity, and I know Nanaimo, Vancouver Island University, they were looking at a land trust just before COVID, and it got collapsed. But there are opportunities to take the endowment lands at our universities and actually build thoughtful communities. Um, I mean, I could talk about post secondary all day long, because I've like thrown my hands in the air. I'm so disillusioned by you know like they're the ultimate holders of the status quo, even though they all went bankrupt 15 years ago. I think there's actually a class action lawsuit around immigration and post secondary that hasn't surfaced yet. Like there's some really big issues, and it's really a shame, because they're holding on to an outdated construct when they should be, hubs of success. Like they are literally the most untapped value in our society, beyond just transferring knowledge, like everything else they could and should be doing. And I find it incredibly frustrating how they're managed and governed.
This leads down a tangent. I did spend some time working at a college, and I was astounded at how locked into the past.
Yeah.
It's just didn't configure for me, because here you've got, you know, a learning institution that should be seeking all kinds of new things and creative, and they were so locked in don't this is that don't that was weird.
It's a leadership case study that is probably the best one you could ever go after. Like if you're going to do a dissertation, it's like the historic leadership of post-secondary in Canada over the last 25 years. Because it's like the ship left the dock and they're still on the dock wondering where the ship is. It's shocking. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
this is such an amazing conversation. I think we need to do something with these conversations for sure, because we have a lot of collective uh, knowledge here, and we have a lot of similar circumstance experience and so on. I think that we can probably nail a number of issues, problems that maybe we can and they're not segregated necessarily at all. And I think that's the beauty of it. With input from different industries, you start to see how similar these issues are, and how we might be able to tackle a couple of these problems and have them feed into these different industries to help change and improve them.
I completely agree. I think these conversations have to reach more people. We have to be having these conversations, what Peter said about post-secondary, and I think we not I think we are going to have sessions on that, because it's one of the three greatest factors for economic growth is investment in human capital, and we're not
Yeah.
doing it the right way. So that cross-pollination would be helpful, and telling your friends to come here. But I will, I'll commit to getting these out in YouTube raw. Just put it out there. People can, it's there. And maybe if I have time or my team has time, is to get to clip these and do something with it on social media with messaging at some point. But yeah, let me just get that out there, because it's worth sharing. These are really big conversations that need to let others know we're having them, because
Yeah, no, it'd be great to
we're pulling out our hair, some more than others, and make things happen.
it would be great to have other folks reach in here and enlarge the conversation, but then take action
Well,
on a number of ideas here
and
too.
all in due time, right? It just takes a couple
Yes.
of blazers and it's leadership, setting the example. So, Kathleen, what would you say, or how can you contribute to spreading this message and herding more cats here?
Well, because of my involvement with buildings, IFMA, so it's not just buildings, it's actually operating them too. I belong to IFMA, which is a global community. And so the council that I've been chairing over the last couple of years, we started to do YouTube videos about, they're called Dancing with Change in Facility Management. And it's really based on the Peter Senge book because you've experienced how change is resisted, but yet around us change is happening. So we have to through all of this work, if we want to keep up and not be chasing the world as it takes off. So we have to, I think, somehow invite excitement about change. We have to invite more people to participate, and that together we can actually, forge a path that doesn't scare the hell out of everybody. That kind of thing. So just more engagement. So we started conversations that are posted on YouTube. We advertise them through LinkedIn. There's actually, well, that's how we met, I think. No, we met through Julie.
Through Julie, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we just had a book club uh last night, actually.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. No, so LinkedIn it's a good meeting place, I found anyway. I mean, there's some weird shit on there, but it's a good meeting place for business interests and thinkers. So we can certainly use that platform, I think, to invite more folks. And because it's international, we have so much benefit from international experience, thinking, circumstances that we can all share and learn from. At least that's what I'm finding. So
Okay. Well then, and that's my intent, Peter's intent is to grow this community, to have these conversations, to support people, leaders, businesses to create the change we need. So whatever you can do, whatever you think we can do, we don't know what we don't know. Let us know what we could or should be doing, and that's the intent is change, positive change.
yeah. So
Well, and I think I'll add the caveat just from what you said without scaring people, because I think that's actually a real issue.
Mm,
Like building alternative models to think about, but without, it's kind of like, I mean, Kathleen, you'll appreciate this from Lean, that it's not about reducing head count, it's about reorganizing for
yeah,
better outcomes, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, totally.
yeah.
No, actually that I just as you were saying that, Peter, it struck me that there are likely a number of folks that fear all kinds of
I would argue 99% of people are like that.
really, wow, okay.
Well,
So
think about, and this is, and Anisha, I've talked about this. So if you have a family and you went to university and you're in the middle of your career cycle, the last thing you want is somebody to disrupt that. It's like, I just want to go do my job and go home and enjoy my family. Like that's, I think, the majority of where people are at, you know?
yeah, so we have to find a way to describe disruption as a joyful thing.
Yeah.
As a
Exactly. And that's empathy, I think. It's really bringing empathy into those conversations, right? That,
well, I think
we
we have to interject economics into this too.
yeah. Yeah,
And
well, and that's ideology, right? I mean, one politician would say going into debt to build infrastructure today is more important than doing it as we can afford it. Another one would say, no, you should only spend what you have. So, you
Yes.
have to find that kind of idea too, right?
Well,
Which is important. It's important. I mean, you both of you have been bureaucrats, so like you bring that lens to it. But I think it's really important to bring those thinkers into the conversation because and I know you guys both can appreciate this. Sometimes you have to understand their rationale before you can really start working on a solution,
Mhm.
where it's kind of like, well, it seems like you're making money on bank interest by not paying, your suppliers in these P3 situations. That's the story I have in my head. Is it true? Oh, no, no, this is actually why. So I feel like there's
Sure.
there's some, and that's hard because honesty seems to be in short supply these days. But I'm always super happy to have somebody in the conversation that actually is feeling the pain personally.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of those kinds of conversations and input is built on trust for sure. So establishing or determining how we can do that. And I think honesty is such a great way to establish trust. And
Well, and then how do you bring that out publicly? Because I can tell you, I post some pretty radical ideas on LinkedIn. I don't think they're radical, but other people do. And I have a lot of people that comment to me personally, but they never say anything publicly. And I get a real kick out of that because I have like 15 of them now. Every time I post some wild idea, they're like, my phone rings and they're blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, why don't you say that public? Oh, no, I can't do that. So it's an interesting challenge. And I always think, well, how do I reword and reframe what they're saying so I don't out them, but I also am able to, I actually have one guy, I swear he tells me stuff because he knows I'll post it. Fear is rampant. That is for sure.
well, yeah, that's interesting in on LinkedIn in particular. Why, yeah. But
Yeah. Well, nobody's canceled me yet, so I'm still here. I'm just waiting for somebody to, when I call out government investments in economic development, I'm just waiting for the RCMP to show up at my house. But we've
it's
had enough of you.
I find on LinkedIn if someone posts something that's incredibly biased, which most people do, they have
Yeah.
a perspective. I address it is particularly if I disagree, and if I'm going, what? I just ask a question.
Yeah.
Uh,
Clarifying. I try and put that at the bottom of the real radical ones. Clarifying questions are welcome.
Well, I think that firstly, I believe that there needs to be a forum where different opposed viewpoints can have a civilized intercourse, discussion, whatever. And because if you just discard everything that you totally disagree with, yeah,
Yeah.
just be
Well,
bipolar.
I mean, that's the ideology. Some days I wish I wasn't so open-minded. I think, oh, I must be lucky to have such a polarized opinion on something. It's like I just can't, I personally can't get there. And some days I wish I could, but no, yeah,
And I think that
yeah,
there's three sides to every story, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Our
exactly.
side, their side, and the truth. And
That's right. I forgot about
what Peter said about understanding those delayed payments is there's we just you don't know what you don't know, but having that
that.
conversation, the cross pollination, the idea sharing, having people that are experts in their field, and to be able to share why they think one thing is better than the other, because I don't think that's happening in academia. It's definitely not happening in politics. Or where are we having those conversations that were
Ask the hard questions.
yeah.
That
So
would be interesting. You said, we should do something with these conversations. That would be interesting to say, okay, well, we talked about healthcare, we talked about it. It's like each time we kind of go through a theme, we should come up with a series of like 1 to 10 questions that are really hard hitting. Like, why is this not happening? What is this? And then, you can actually like publish questions and then move those forward. Because you're right, Kathleen, that making statements always fall flat, but asking questions really, drives conversations. But yeah, it would be interesting if you had enough lobbying power politically to say, you know, why why do you need a PhD to be the president of a university? Question mark. Like things like that are like these seem like things that have always, I've always had this question. But then if you had a lobbying prowess behind it.
I think there's potential here for sure.
Mm,
I certainly uh I can invite a number of very mindful folks into this conversation if you're okay with that.
Do it. Let's pick a date,
Obviously,
pick a theme, and bring those people.
yeah. I most of the folks that I associate with it because it is such a huge industry. They're actually part of the building industry. But I have in mind this one really brilliant person who's uh, he's a planner, he's an architect, he's involved in facility management. He does he spends time, well, he developed some software for campus master planning. And again, it's really, you know, capturing data and continuing to update it. So, I mean, there's obviously a connection with digital here too. And so I've actually thrown out a query to him. I want to talk to him about a couple of things.
Okay.
So I think that this group would really benefit from his input. I think he's originally from Brazil. Um, he lives in Vancouver, but I've worked with him when I was working at a post-secondary,
Hmm.
just for a short time. So anyway, there are folks like that. I know a number of really um, folks interested in thinking and questioning and having conversations.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. And as long as they lead to action.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. And for the most part, I mean, I read a lot. That's cool. But if you can't do something with this energy you're putting into conversations and solving problems, then it's yeah, why?
Okay. Well then, all right, let's leave it at that. It's 1:30 my time.
Holy moly.
What I'd like to do is so we're keeping up the medical theme for the next two Wednesdays and then rotating it with the next theme. And I had some ideas, but based on whatever may come up with you, Kathleen, we may dedicate the next series towards buildings or infrastructure or something else. And then I wanted to get into as well becoming capital ready or decreasing risk for capital and human capital as well.
I actually follow a couple of folks in the UK and who are working on different way changing the world, I guess really, but who are also focused on the NHS, which is their whole
Health
healthcare.
service. Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, this one guy who has I think a techno background. Anyway, he wrote this article on LinkedIn, shared it on LinkedIn, and I think he nailed it. Like he really talked about the fact that technology is great, but that's not your problem. And that's not necessarily the solution. If you don't understand your business, technology is not going to help you out, right?
It'll help you crash faster.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he was very eloquent with that. So if I can find it, I'll flip it to you guys and particularly around healthcare because that's what he was focused on.
Yeah,
And I
please.
think that that might add again some more depth and interest to this
Yeah,
conversation.
if you find that, please post it, tag Peter and I so that maybe we can create a larger conversation and pull in other people. That'd be really good.
Cool.
nice.
Okay, well, that's a wrap, and hopefully we'll see others next Wednesday. And Peter, if you can give me 8 minutes, you and I have a call.
Yeah, let's do it on WhatsApp.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Great
Bye.
talking, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
take care.
everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.